Hello students and welcome to this third question on ABC costing and traditional costing. And this question is called Merlin Pty Limited, and it is a company that is established in Rustenburg, and they produce two types of bath robes. So one type is sold locally and the other type is exported to the Middle East. They say the two products are produced with the same equipment and they utilize the same overheads. In 2012, the company has budgeted to manufacture 60,000 robes for the local market and 40,000 robes to be exported. The manufacturing is done in batches of 1,000 robes, and other details are as follows. So to begin with, I see that they give me an analysis of the rand values of the overhead costs, and they were so kind as to add it up for me. Sometimes they don't give you the total of the rand value of the overheads. So I'm just going to highlight it for myself in red because that's definitely important information that I will need if I have to do the traditional costing method. You will remember that for traditional costing, we use the sum of the overheads. For ABC costing, we do a calculation for each overhead separately. Then they've given you an analysis of the overhead and its cost driver and how much of it relates to the local rope that they produce and how much of it is for the export market, which is the export rope. What I can already see in this question is that they're trying to catch me out because they haven't given you the totals to the cost driver, which is very important. You will need that information to do ABC. So for this, I am just going to add another column into the question. Let me just move everything so that you can see properly. And now I am going to just make sure that I add up the cost driver totals. Otherwise, I might be struggling when I have to do ABC. So I will type everything in red just as proof that it wasn't given. This was an additional calc that I did for myself. So 160 should be 160. The 2 should be 200, 200, which is 400. So here you can see we have material handling, material procurement, we have some machine setups, quality control, production and depreciation. Very interesting, in the cost analysis they turned production and depreciation around just to trick you and see if you will divide by the wrong calculation. So be careful, sometimes there are subtle things like that in a question, and if you don't pay attention you will struggle. In the second column, they tell you for example, for the material procurement, the cost driver is the number of orders, because the more orders that are placed, the more material needs to be procured from the warehouse. Then the number of machines, the number of setups relate to the machine setup cost. The number of inspections, of course, relate to the quality control cost. The machine hours to the depreciation, because depreciation is what? It means that assets lose their value over time because you've been using them. A brand new car is worth more than a car that has been driven. A brand new machine is worth more than a machine that has produced 100 or 200 units. And so if the depreciation is for machinery, then of course the machine hours is a cost driver, because the more the machines work, the more you will have to depreciate them and the lesser they will be worth. And then, of course, production is the direct labor hours. That was the cost driver there. So now I'm just going to add up the local and export, because they have given you the cost driver totals in each instance. So I'm just adding them up. For the number of setups, it's 100. For the number of inspections, it's 250. Then it is 380,000. Let me just type properly. And for the production, it seems like 65,000. So I'm just already typing that in for myself. Then I know I have done my calculations preliminary, and I will use them later on, because of course you will always be required to do traditional and ABC costing. Otherwise, I won't be teaching you both methods. So the company's management has been using the traditional costing approach to allocate the overheads between the products, and they use direct labor hours. So they use the direct labor hours as an allocation base, because remember, in traditional costing, we take the sum of all the overheads, which in this instance is 1.5 million, and we need to divide it by only a single cost driver. Right, then you will see in the required part they've asked you need to calculate the overheads to be allocated to the products using, just correct that, using the traditional costing approach and the activity-based costing approach. Again, I am going to use my template because I know that it is foolproof. Again, I have shared the template to Vutela. You will see on the first sheet, I have given you a formula as to how to approach the traditional costing, and on the second sheet, there's ABC costing. In the required part to this question, you need to do the traditional costing approach. Of course, this will be based on direct labor hours only. And then you have to do activity-based costing, where each little overhead will have its own cost driver. I'm going to copy the traditional costing formula. So I'm just copying it and I am putting it back on what I intend to be the memo. And here I have a nice formula and I'm just going to call it, this is required A. So in traditional costing, what do? We take the total overheads, we divide it by the total cost driver, and there is only one cost driver, and then we need to take our answer and multiply it with the cost driver for each specific product. So in applying step 1 to traditional costing, I need to find the total overheads, which was 1.5 million, and I need to divide it by the total cost driver that they have selected for use, which is direct labor hours, and that was 65,000 direct labor hours. So I'm going to take 1.5 million and I'm going to divide it by 65,000 direct labor hours. When I do that calculation, the answer that I get to, or that Excel gets to rather, is 23 Rand and 8 cents. I had some inquiries. If I give you a test to be written, which is online or on Vutela, then I prefer to give you calculations that work out exactly. Otherwise, there might be big variances in terms of rounding. So this was simply a written question that I have taken from quite a while ago. You will see that in the question it was even dated, I think 2012, but I think it's still really good and relevant. So I used this one. It was written in class, in a class test. However, if it's online, I would rather give you questions that work out precisely. So it would just be 23 Rand. In this instance, should it be a handwritten test, then you need to always use 2 decimals because we work with money. So it's 23 Rand and 8 cents, which is the rate to step 1. In step 2, we have 2 products. I'm going to call them local and export because there is a local rope and a rope for exportation. So then I'm going to take the rate, which we just calculated. It is 23 Rand and 8 cents. And we need to multiply it by the cost driver as selected for the traditional method for each of these products. So going back to my question, you will see that there are 45,000 direct labor hours and 20,000 direct labor hours for the 2 products. So I'm going to take this information and just go and put it in. So it's 45,000 and 20,000 respectively. And then I just need to multiply to get to the total overheads to be allocated. In this instance, I take the 23 Rand rate and 8 cents rate and I times it by the cost driver of that product. And there you go. So if we should use the direct labor hours as a cost driver in the traditional method, there is 1,030,000 38,600 Rand to be allocated to the local robe production, whereas with the exports or the export robe, we will only have 461,600. Right, so that was the traditional costing method, quite simple. We take the sum of everything, we divide it by the cost driver, and there's only one cost driver to multiply by in the second step. In required number B, we need to take the information that was given, and now we need to apply activity-based costing. So activity-based costing requires for us to go and look at each activity separately. So we need to go and look at each of these activities separately, and thus we do a separate calculation for each overhead. So now I am just going to highlight in the same color the information that should be sorted together when we do the ABC costing. If I look at the material handling, let's highlight that one, for example, in yellow, and the material movement should go with it. So I know this line item should go with it when I do ABC costing. If I look at the procurement, that was 40,000 Rand in total. I need to go and highlight that another color. So I'm, for example, going to make it green. And it should go with the number of orders, which means it goes there. Right, then we have machine setups. And that should go with the number of setups. So I will highlight those to a similar color. So I know, for example, that the purple must go with the purple cost driver. So now there will be a calculation for each little overhead. Then there's some quality control costs, 270,000. I will highlight that one in red. And then also the number of inspections should go with that one, which is also in red. You can't see, so I'm just going to turn that back to black. Then we have our depreciation, and I'm going to highlight that one in gray, and I'm just going to take the machine hours. It should also then be gray because it goes with that. And then we have production, which is 610,000, and I am going to highlight that in, let's use the what? We already have the green. Let's use this deep blue. Righty, so now we have highlighted everything that should go together. We have highlighted in a similar color. I'm going back to my template because again, I know it is foolproof. I go to ABC and I copy the table that relates to it. I'm going back to what I am setting up as a memo. And I am just calling this required number B. We don't have a third product in this question, so I'm just going to delete it. I set up the template in that way just to ensure that you know that 3 products may also be asked. Then we have product 1 is now not a product 1, but rather a local. And then we also have an export robe. I'm going to list all the overheads. So I remember it was material handling and material procurement. So I'm just listing them. Then we have, I believe, machine setup costs. Then we have quality control. And depreciation. And of course, the production cost. Then in this layout, we have to calculate a rate, and then the rate is used and multiplied by the cost driver to the specific product. Sometimes when we explain accounting in words, it's very abstract. So instead of just explaining, I am going to show you where to find the information. So I'm going to start with material handling, and that one was yellow. So I'm going to take the 200,000 rand and I'm going to divide it by the total of the cost driver that belongs to it, which is 160 material movements. So it's the 200,000 divided by 160. So I'm just typing it in. 200,000 divided by 160. That gives you a rate of 1,250. I'm going to take the 1,250, I'm going to take that to each of the products because I must use it. And now it needs to be multiplied by the specific cost driver to this product. If I go back, it was 100 for the local robe and 60 for the export robe. So I will multiply here by 100, which should give you 125,000, and I need to multiply here by 60, and according to my calculator, so I'm just using my calculator now so that you may follow as to how I got to the calculation. It's 75,000 rand. Right, moving on to my next rate, I am going to take then the 40,000 of procurement. I need to divide it by the total of the specific cost driver that goes with it. And that was the number of orders, and the total was 400. So it will be 40,000 divided by 400. So I'm calculating the rate, 40,000 divided by 400. I need to times it by each of the cost drivers for the product, and here you can see it was 200 and 200 respectively. So in the memo, I am going to say I copy the 100 to each of the products, and now I need to times, and it's by 200 and again by 200. So if my mathematics isn't too poor, this should give you 20,000. Right, the next one is a calculation we need to do that relates to the machine setup. Going back to the question, we highlighted that one in a nice lavender purplish color. So it was 180,000 rand was the machine setup overhead, and the cost driver that went with it, it was the number of setups, and the total there was 100. So we need to divide the 180 by this 100. That gives us a rate of 1,800 rand. So I'm copying the rate each time. And now I need to go and I need to multiply. And I need to multiply by the cost driver of each of the products. If I look at the number of setups, it was 60 and 40 respectively. So I'm putting it in under the products. So there's 60 and there is 40. So if I now take my calculator and say 1,800 and I times that by 60, I get to an answer of 108,000 rand. And if I take the 1,800 and I times it by 40, I now get to a total of 72,000 rand. We are on the quality control cost. So for the quality control, going back to the question, it was highlighted in red. It was 270,000. Then we had the number of inspections, and we need to divide it by the total of the cost driver that goes with it, which was 250. So we need to take the 270,000 and divide it by 250. That gives you 1,080. So I'm copying the rate to each of the products. And now we need to go and multiply by the total for each of the types of robes. So it's 150 and 100 respectively. So here I'm going to times by 100 and then I need to times here by 150. Again, I am not using Excel. I'm using my calculator, so this should be 108,000. And if I say 1080 and I times it by 150, I get a 162,000. Great. We are on depreciation. For the depreciation, we said it is the gray color, and it was a total of 200,000, and it was driven by the machine hours, and the total machine hours were 380,000. So we need to take the 200,000 rand and divide it by the 280,000 machine hours. So it is 200,000 divided by 380,000, and that gives us again a figure that needs to be rounded because we work with money. I rounded to 2 decimals, and that gives us 53 cents. So I'm carrying the 53 cents to each of the products. Right, now we need to go and multiply by the specific cost driver for that product, which is 180 and 200,000 respectively. So here I'm going to times by 180, and here I need to times by 200,000. Again, I'm just using my calculator to do the calculation quickly. If I times by 180,000, I get 95,400 rand. And then I'm going to take the 53 cents and times it by the 200,000. That gives you 106,000. All right, we are on the last one, which is the production cost. For the production cost, if we go back to the question, it was the one in the blue. It was 610,000 rand in total, and the cost driver was the direct labor hours. The direct labor hours was a total of 65,000. I'm just going to put that one back in black so that you can read properly. So it was 45 and 20,000 there. So it was 65,000. So I'm going to take the 610,000 and I'm going to divide it by the 65,000 labor hours. That gives you rounded. It gives you 9 rand and 38 cents. I'm copying that to each of the products. And now I need to go and multiply. I'm multiplying by 45,000 and 20,000 respectively. Right, I'm typing that into my calculator. If I take the 9 rand and 38 cents and I times it by 45,000, I get 422,100. And if I do the calculation for the export robes and I times it by 20,000, I beg your pardon, I get 187,600. Right, all that is left to do now is that we need to go and find a total. So for the total, I need to add up all the totals for local, and then for the total under exports, I need to add up all the totals for the export. Here I'm just going to say it is then 125,000 plus 20,000 plus 108,000 plus another 108,000 plus the 95,400 and add to that the 422,100. The total overheads to be allocated to the local robe is 878,500. Adding up for exports, it is the 75,000 add 20,000 add 72,000, add 162,000, add 106,000, I add 187,600. The total overheads to be allocated to the export robe is 622,600. All right, I hope that you have enjoyed this video and that this has helped you understand the principles of traditional costing and ABC costing a little bit better. Please make sure that you do try the homework question as well, and I will be uploading a solution for that one a bit later. All right, keep well.